Well, a very good day to you. Welcome to today's episode of The Big Question. I'm your host here, Simon Irungu. Wherever it is that you're watching us from, I want to really thank you. Take this moment to thank you for always supporting us. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, just go ahead, click the red button below, and you're just going to be one of us. Let me introduce to you our guest, our always guest, Professor Herman Manyora. How are you doing, sir?
Wonderful. I just come from a long journey.
Kisumu.
Yes.
Kisumu. How is Kisumu?
Wonderful.
How are people saying there? Is it Baba? Is it William Ruto?
I think it's Baba.
In Kisumu, it's
Yes,
Baba.
you would expect.
I heard you complaining that you bought a pot. What happened to the pot that you bought?
That's one of them, bro. I left one behind. He was there, maneno.
You're counting your pots and then you realize...
Talking of subscription, a guy called me yesterday and said, I want to subscribe. When you have very good ideas, I really want to support you. I want to subscribe. How do I? So this thing, Kumbe, tell people to subscribe.
People
And he thought he needed to pay. And he's not less than a professor, a very senior professor, an engineer to boot.
So
and,
what you need to do to subscribe to the channel, you see just below the video that you're watching currently, you'll see a red button written subscribe. You just click on it and it's absolutely free. And then you're just one of us.
Thank you.
Well, Prof, let's break the ice by looking at Sri Lanka. I don't know if you saw what is happening in Sri Lanka. People ambushing.
I think we used to call it Ceylon when I was in primary school. Yes.
You saw what happened there. Wow, yes. Is Kenya headed towards that direction?
Let me say this. Many countries in the world are not doing well. And for a country to get where Sri Lanka is, it's not very difficult. In fact, there's a World Bank report that puts about 100 or so countries, I think 107 countries. Sri Lanka is there, Kenya is there.
So we might also be...
Then they scale down to around another 28 or 29 with even more severe problems. Kenya is still there.
Okay.
So I feel very sad when I see people who aspire to be leaders in this country at the level of president playing with such a serious matter. The cost of living is not a matter over which you can do politics. No, because these are serious. People have seen what's happening. You saw people diving into the
some taking showers, some cooking in the president's kitchen.
Yes, the president has fled the country. We shouldn't ever push ourselves into that direction. But when you hear people campaigning, you wonder, do they know we can go there? Once we go there, all of us lose. There's nobody who gains. Nobody gains. We all lose. Okay. The country must remain intact for you to actualize your ambitions if you want to be president. That's why people should celebrate the handshake instead of spiting it. Don't say unga equal 200 because of handshake. No. Celebrate the handshake. Then go ahead and recognize that there are many issues in the country. Some of these issues, we as Kenyans can do almost nothing about. Others, they may be international, but we shall have ways of mitigating. For example, oil is very expensive. Why can't we stop listening to America and buy oil from Iran? Because it will be cheaper. There are things we can do, but not when we are cheapening the whole process, the whole problem.
Okay, Prof, let me ask you this. People are saying on social media, saying that the economy of Kenya had risen even before COVID-19, before the Ukrainian war.
Yes.
People are saying now during the coming of COVID-19 and the start of Ukraine war, now is when things should have, prices of things should have gone up. But people are saying that prices are already up.
Yeah, the world has been changing. Things have been changing globally. It's a global trend. Look, I laugh. Sometimes I even go to TV. I can't even debate some people. I just look at it and say, nah, am I going to be a heckler like them? When you say maize flour is, unga is 200 in Kenya, and it is, say, 180 in Uganda, have you considered many factors? When you say unga was 75 before the handshake around 2018, now it's 200. Why don't you also tell us the exchange rate for the dollar at that time? Why don't you tell us the price of crude oil at that time, 2018? No, this cheapness is sickening because we are playing with fire.
But isn't that a point of comparing yourself with the countries that are doing bad? Just because we are doing less bad than they are.
What I'm trying to say is this.
In a better position.
These are global trends. For example, when you see some of the prices going up of commodities in the world, including Kenya, things like even crude oil, it's not just the price of crude. It is a scheme that has happened in the recent years, recent past, where shipping lines, the major global transporters, conspire as cartels. And the cost of transportation goes up 3-4 times. At a global level, those commodities cannot come to Mombasa. You can't go and pick them yourself. You see what I'm saying? So these problems, most of them are global. And it is a trend. Many countries are caught up. This is international capitalism. So people are just caught up. Even when you celebrate sometimes, oh, Kibaki did well, he did. No, most of that was just a global trend, like liberalization. Like the exchange, liberalizing the exchange, the exchange and foreign exchange. You know, where previously, if you are caught with American dollars or pounds, British pounds, or any foreign currency, and you had not declared at the airport, you go in like Waruru Kanja was jailed. You'll be jailed. You know, we have come from far, but these are global trends that bring changes. Even when you say, oh, multipartyism, they are also just part of global trends after the break of the collapse of the Berlin Wall. Then the wind of change was blowing across the world, and the dictators had to give way. So many of the things, really, we are minor players in a field controlled by others. So when somebody doesn't appear to understand that, and they want to be president, I get a little worried. If the Ukraine war is shaking Europe like this, how can it not affect Kenya? Germany is about to tell off Americans. Is about to get out of NATO in terms of operation.
So many countries threatening to leave NATO, by the way.
Pardon?
There's quite a few countries now in Europe getting unstable, like UK losing their minister.
You see, you have seen even demonstrations in the UK. Cost of living. The cost of living is not a joke. What I'm thinking, leaders ought to form economic recovery teams, or people who can think. People with the capacity to think. That's what we need now. Every country needs that. Otherwise, don't just look at Sri Lanka. Many countries will go that way.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, the same situation happening in Sri Lanka. We have almost a similar situation happening happened a few days ago in Ghana, Accra, Ghana, where people took it to the street to demonstrate the high cost of fuel. And we also we saw Kenyans also the other day, but peaceful demonstration inside Nairobi demonstrating, saying that no unga, no election, Prof. Is it what is triggering this demonstration all across the globe? Because
it is hunger. A hungry man is an angry man. But let me tell Kenyans, especially leaders, this is a very fragile economy. You know, economies are different. I've given examples of Uganda. With all the coups in Uganda and the political instability, they have never begged for food. They have never received foreign aid food. So now that economy is an indigenous food economy, where people use indigenous foods, you know, at least locally, not exotic food like maize, or they use simsim, they use bananas, groundnuts, sorghum. Those are their meals. But an economy like Kenya, a supermarket economy like Kenya, watch watu wacheze tu. This is the supermarket economy. With this country cannot withstand instability for 3 weeks. The amount of suffering you can witness in this country, watu wacheze tu. This is not a joke.
Prof, looking at Kenya, I think we have all the resources that we need to provide food for our citizens.
Yes.
What is hindering us?
It is stupidity and greed. Stupidity and greed, and the policies that do not seem to understand that the world is changing. That many of the times you are going to find yourself on your own. COVID was just but a tip of the iceberg. That there are going to be times, and times are now with us, where nations will need to understand it is themselves for themselves. It is happening, you can see, across the world. So the policies we pursue are selfish. People want to enrich themselves, to steal, and therefore we cannot be food secure, for example, without proper policies on land. Yet the people who make it difficult for us to have policies on land that can help us grow food and sustain ourselves are people who have land for speculative reasons. They don't even use it. You have 30,000 acres, which you don't use. You have a plot somewhere you have never developed for the past 15, 20 years. When it comes to money, apart from the 10,000 acres of land you have in Kitale, and another 18 in Narumoru, and another 6,000 in Narok, totaling maybe to 40,000 acres of land, you have huge billions in your account. You will never use, not even your children. So that greed, and then of course there are very small things we can do. Once we have sorted out the issue of land, so that land tenure system, how much land can one have in terms of maximum, in terms of, because even minimal, if you keep subdividing land, niko na watoto wawili, 3 pieces, then hawa wanazaa wawili, finally the land cannot be agriculturally viable for production. So minimum acreage. What do you do with land that is idle? Do we tax it? Do we take it from you? No, those are the policies. Then you move ahead and say, now this is a small country that requires just about 1 million 2 acres of land, cultivation, maize. What do we do to encourage people to do that? Give them free seed, free fertilizer. It cannot cost the government much. Once you provide free seed and free fertilizer, you are locking out dealers who are bringing in fake fertilizer and poor seeds. Because it is free. Why would somebody buy and there's free fertilizer? So things of that nature. Then the marketing. Because if a farmer harvests today and they don't get their market, the middlemen come, get their produce for a song. Next year they can't farm. They can't farm well. If there are 10 acres, they will do 5. If they had put in good fertilizers and amounts, good fertilizer levels, they will reduce the levels. Is it really worth it? Finally, the whole country is suffering in terms of food production because farmers are discouraged. When there's a bumper harvest, there is no market. Okay. You get it? Then there are issues like drying. If you provide drying facilities, we have 2 problems with food. There is food waste and there is the food loss. There's loss and waste. So farmers lose a lot of their products in the farm, produce, to pests, nini, and then the maize can't dry well in Aoza. So when I hear people like Ruto talking, I just keep quiet. Why hasn't even just provided drying facilities to farmers in his own county when he was minister, when he was deputy president? You know how much maize is lost. If you go to the cereal board when they are buying maize, you'll cry. They test the moisture content, they tell you go with your maize. The person who had dropped the maize, the lorry transporter, say ameenda, and you are paid him. And the cereal doesn't want to buy your maize because of moisture content or because of aflatoxin. Ingine zimeoza ndani kidogo. So that loss, of course, this country has not gotten to a place of waste. Waste happens in the West. Waste happens in the West. Waste means the people, especially in the middle class, buy food and they don't finish on the table. When that peck kidogo, you bread, you remove the ends, unatupa, that's food waste. In some countries like Germany, if you do that, you can be fined. So this country has a problem. And these problems can be mitigated and sorted if the right man comes to power.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Do we need mega projects to produce food internally?
No.
Like the Gilana Kulala?
Forget about it.
Know how it
you don't. In fact, if you are to go into irrigation, you cannot start irrigating mangoes and avocados. You can't irrigate maize because there are places in this country where maize grows under natural conditions. Farmers just want what I've told you, free seed, so that you guarantee the quality of seed. Free fertilizer so that you avoid fake fertilizer. You get it?
Yes.
As a form of subsidy from government. They want proper marketing, post-harvest losses, like so that drying and panya kukula because of dealing with those. That's what they want. They don't want irrigation. When you go into irrigation, start irrigating vegetable, horticulture, flowers, vegetable. That's where you start with irrigation. As you learn the ropes, then in the future, as the population grows, as you begin to exploit arid and semi-arid areas for agriculture, then you can go into irrigation for maize. But that will be 50 years from now.
Okay, now, Prof, looking at countries like Egypt and Israel, we all know that these are countries that are located in dry areas.
Deserts, actually.
Deserts. What are they doing better? What are they doing different from us? That
they are using their brains, that's all. And they don't allow greed.
Okay.
Takunyonga.
Okay, now looking at the Raila and William Ruto's manifesto, they are saying how they are going to bring the economy down, Prof.
Yes.
And we are looking at the state of the economy. It's something global. You're saying it's something global. How are they going to tackle this issue?
It depends. You must isolate things that are global and national. Okay. Then you ask yourself, can I do something about global issues? For example, I'll give you an example of oil.
Okay.
It's time we go to Iran for oil. It's cheaper. Americans don't want us to deal with Iran. Sasa sisi tutaumia juu ya America. Let's buy oil from Iran. It's cheaper. You have the courage if you are Raila or Ruto. So now, at the local level, what can I do to mitigate the cost of living? Once mafuta goes up, oil up, everything up, why can't government remove certain levies from oil? You get it? Okay. Because every time you buy a liter of oil, let's say 100 shillings, 50 goes to the government in form of levies and taxes. Some government can remove. But basically what the government is going to do, if that government is responsive, is to divide long-term, mid-term, and immediate term. What they can do immediate. What can they do immediately? I heard Raila saying, government will have to look at the priorities. Even stop certain development projects. Negotiate with the contractor. Say, please, wacha tukae kidogo. Wacha watu wakule chakula. So the money that will have gone on a road somewhere, then government saves that money and they reduces tax on certain commodities. Because if you reduce taxes on certain commodities, it means government will not get the revenue it requires to pay salaries and do development. But if you have stopped a project, 18 billion, you have saved that. You don't need the taxes as much as you would have needed them if that road was going on. Okay. So that money is then used to mitigate the suffering, which in a sense means you lower certain taxes. And if things get worse, you even give food stamps. You give people vouchers or stamps which they can use to go somewhere and get food for free. Okay. And you increase the vulnerable, the group of people who will be receiving 6,000. If you are saying there will be 2 million because you are basing yourself on this and this and this, kama huyu hapana, unaingiza yule. So instead of 2 million, you perhaps now have 3-4 million people the government is giving the 6,000. Okay. And maybe you say 6,000 is no longer enough, you make it 10. These are things that can be worked on if a government is sincere, is serious, and it has men and women with the capacity to see, especially to have a pulse on the suffering of the nation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now the question is, after the situation in Sri Lanka, the situation in Ghana, people are asking, is Kenya headed towards that direction?
Yes and no. Yes, we'll go the Sri Lankan way sooner than we think if we don't know nothing about it, if we do nothing about it. No, because it is within our reach and our powers to prevent it. But we must be serious enough to sort out the kind of problems we have by looking at the kind of men and women in this election, for example, who we can trust, can put measures in place to mitigate that suffering. What I see Kenya is doing is buying into rhetoric from demagogues. And that is the surest way to slide into the Sri Lankan way. Because the problem in Kenya is real. Don't make stupid promises.
Like promising to bring the economy down?
Yeah, not the economy, the cost of living.
The cost of living?
Yeah, even when Raila says, I'll bring it down, you must be very careful, as you said.
Or avoid being specific.
And, you know, and when, yeah, specific like the manifesto of Ruto, or, you know, or cheapening it and saying it's handshake. Okay. Because if you take over power and people are suffering, you cannot explain to them things are difficult. Because you told them it's just handshake. Ilikuwa tu Raila na Ruto, na Uhuru. So now that Raila is not there and Uhuru has gone home with Shaweri and Raila is in Bondo, what are you telling us? We don't want stories. Hii unga ikuwe 50, then you'll go Sri Lanka way. Yeah. In other words, I must end by saying, let leaders not cheapen this thing. This is a bad thing. This situation, I'm from the village. I told you I'm from the village. Yes. Life in the village is hard. These big people don't know. Life in the village is hard. You have a man in the village who for the past 6 months or 1 year has never seen 1,000 shilling. So when people rubbish this 6,000 from Raila, they don't understand. Somebody hajawahi shika noti ya 1,000 mwaka imepita na ako na bibi na watoto, ama ni mama hata hana bwana, ako na watoto 3, 4, hata wengine wanaenda shule, hajaona noti ya 1,000 mwaka imeisha. So this 6,000 from Raila is not a joke. It can mean a difference. You get it?
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is there is so much suffering in this country that if we play cheap politics with it, we will blame ourselves.
Well, I guess that's where we wrap up the conversation. Well, keep the conversation going. You can do that by sharing the content with your friends. Keep commenting on the comment section. Tell us what you think about the state of the economy of Kenya currently. Well, till you have this conversation again, till you have the big question again, enjoy the rest of your day.